Rodney, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome into the game here in Tuscaloosa. I hope all is well, man.
Doing great, Ryan. How are you?
Well, to be honest with you, not really worth the flip.
Wow.
Yeah. 90 minutes. We've had all basketball talk, and I'm about to pull my hair
Wow.
out. But other than that, I'm okay.
Well, let me make you feel a little better.
Okay.
The last month to 6 weeks, it has dominated the conversation on TiderInsider. So I don't think I've ever seen football take a back seat to basketball like we've seen over the last month to 6 weeks.
Okay. Well, listen, that makes me feel a little bit better because that's the pulse of the Alabama fan when we talk about your website and the community that you have been able to form there at TiderInsider.com. So that makes me feel a little bit better. But, Nick Saban is did he say anything last night, anything relevant? Because I don't think we even know. No, I'm just kidding. Because literally we've had nobody talk about football. It's been literally all basketball. But, Rodney, you've covered this university for a long time. It's disappointing when you see a program like Alabama lose to Norfolk State.
Well, some people, much more astute basketball observers than myself, have said that it's the most embarrassing loss in Alabama basketball history. I don't know if that's true. A lot of times emotions, after something like this happens, we come in at an all-time high, and maybe that's what that is. But certainly it was I guess you could phrase it an embarrassing loss.
Sure. No, it was. It was. And Rodney, let me go back to what Nick Saban said. In your opinion, what was the biggest kind of take-home message from what Saban said last night inside the football complex?
Well, right, to be honest with you, I'm not real sure that I remember anything too significant. I know he did talk about he seems to be really pleased. That's the first thing.
Sure.
Is with all the effort, the things that they've done, the players, how they've responded. And listen, let's not short sell this. I mean, it's been a post Clemson has been kind of rough. I mean, there's a lot of people questioning Alabama, wondering how they'll respond to what just happened. And you listen to Nick Saban last night; it was pretty positive. As a matter of fact, the times that he's spoken this spring have been positive, I think. And he seems to be happy with the way the players are kind of buying back into the process. He thinks that they got away from it. He talked about the Alabama factor. He was asked about it last night a little bit. He said it's not a slogan. He said that's who we are. That's what this program's been built on. And he said you can go back to the players on the 2008 team, and they can recite and tell you exactly what that is. He said it's just a part of the players and a part of the program that's been in place here, and maybe it slipped a little bit last year at the end.
Well, Rodney, and certainly, listen, we were listening to Nick Saban as well, and as he talked about, I think maybe it was Rainer Saban asked him about the factor,
mm-hmm.
and if that was a slogan, and then, but it may not be a slogan or a saying, but it has been. And as I look back last year, offensively, it was a great football team. It was historic, but there was other parts that just didn't fit into your normal Saban-like team.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're right, and you could point at probably several of those areas. Kind of quoting what a departed coach said. He, starting on the offense, he thought that the skilled people were great. They had tremendous running backs. He thought the offensive line had slipped. He thought that was an issue. Not obviously he had some great players and some really good performances up front. And we got to keep this into perspective.
Sure.
I mean, we're talking about razor thin between being, maybe the greatest team Alabama's had is what would have happened if they would have been 15-0. So we've got to be careful. I mean, it almost sounds crazy to say these things, I think, but he felt like the difference between some of the Alabama teams in the past was, up front offensively, they weren't as strong. They did not run the ball with power. They didn't have the power on the interior part of the offensive line. They kind of lost the physicality a little bit. Felt like Tua masked a lot of their issues up front. Felt like Tua masked a lot of the issues they had defensively, because they could strike quickly, score a lot of points, put a lot of pressure on people, take pressure off the defense. But, once that, the offense did not produce, you saw what happened. I mean, the defense was exposed in the the Clemson game, obviously. Probably after they got out to a 28-0 lead against Oklahoma, Kyler Murray exposed them a little bit. So I just think they had those issues on the defensive side. I think some of them were personnel. You lose your top 6 DBs last year. You have a coaching turnover. I don't think it was, when you talk about the continuity from Kirby Smart to Jeremy Pruitt, and then all of a sudden you got Tosh LaPoy. It's his first time to ever call a defense or, coordinate a defense. And I just think all of those things combined, Ryan, it led to, the end result that we saw.
We're talking to Rodney Orr, TiderInsider.com, and I was on earlier this morning. I mean, believe it or not, the New York Giants reached out to me and wanted me to go on a webcast. Wow. And we started breaking down this roster, and they started looking at different players. Defensively, they're trying to rebuild this team. And he said, you look at Quinnen Williams. How big of a player was he? And I said, if you would have had a lot more of Quinnen Williams-type attitudes on that defensive side of the football. I mean, yeah, there was, let's say, Xavier McKinney. I thought Christian Miller had a great season. It didn't. Isaiah Buggs had a good season. They even asked me about Isaiah Buggs. But when you look at Quinnen Williams, I mean, it's kind of funny that you get the tone of your defense from that player at that position.
Well, yeah, I think they certainly missed the alpha dog, the leaders that they've had, for the most part, those inside linebackers. And again, taking nothing away from Mac Wilson, I thought Dylan Moses, as a sophomore, did a fantastic job. But, I'm talking about guys that have been established for 2 or 3 years that you've seen in the past. The Rolando McClain, C.J. Mosley, Reuben Foster. You can just rattle them off. And I think, they missed those types of guys that could kind of, jerk a knot in everybody and say, hey, let's get locked in here. And, I think they missed that. And, again, you got a whole new personnel in the secondary. You got Pete Golding coaching inside backers for the first time in his career. New secondary coach. All of those things, I think, again, contributed to some of the issues they had on that defensive side of the ball. And you're right. They just didn't quite have all those alpha dogs that they'd had in the past.
Do you feel like the problems with Ali Ko are behind him?
To be honest with you, I don't even know exactly what they are.
Neither do I. Yeah.
Of course, there's been speculation out there that, we know that when he was originally signed with Washington, and then he had some issues academically getting into there that kind of set him up to come here to Alabama. But so I really don't know what that situation is for me to comment on it. But I'll say this. To me, he was obviously a very highly touted player. And think about this, a guy coming in 3 days after camp started. He hadn't been here since he visited back in, November or December, before he signed with Washington. So he gets here 3 days after camp starts, and he plays on all these special teams, made some really good plays, was a solid contributor there. So, guys are outstanding athletes. The point is, they need this guy because they need everybody they can get at inside linebacker. And, hopefully Ali Tahoe is ready to go and, can be a great contributor.
Rodney, when you look at the secondary, what do you feel like about this secondary? And I know Nick Saban even spent a little bit of time talking about safety last night, but looking at the secondary as a whole, what are you expecting from this group? Certainly, there's some young guys that got some play experience last year, and they'll be a year older and a year better. But what do you expect from the secondary as a whole?
Well, I think that first of all, is when you look at a secondary, to me, I always look at the guys up front. What kind of pass rush you're going to have?
Sure, right, yeah.
I think that's always a key, and we'll see what happens. Terrell Lewis is back, Chris Allen's back. Anfernee Jennings obviously returns this year. They should hopefully have a really strong pass rush. I think some of the young players that they have up front might even contribute to that as well. So, we'll see what happens. But, overall, when I look at the secondary, I'm pretty encouraged. I mean, when I look at the back group, you've got to me, the little quarterback back there is Shy Carter. How well did he play at the end of the year? I mean, he played extremely well. So I really like Shy Carter back there. He plays in that star position. Probably maybe they play another position or two this year. We'll see. But, Xavier McKinney, I know that Nick Saban really praised him for his phenomenal, is the way he phrased it, efforts in the offseason and this spring, and been a great leader. So feel really confident about Xavier McKinney and the corners. You've got Trevon Diggs back. You've got Patrick Surtain back. And I think a guy that's a budding star in the future will be Josh Jobe. You saw what he did in that championship game when he came in. He was probably the most aggressive guy back there, playing the ball. So I like him. You've got some other young players. Eddie Smith's a young safety. Daniel Wright's back after redshirting and, they had a little suspension last year. And again, I'm going off the top of my head, so I may be forgetting someone, but those are really some of the guys that stand out to me that I think are kind of exciting. And then you've got Jeffrey Carter's a true freshman who's here right now. He was one of the top 2 or 3 corner prospects in the state of Texas. Got another corner coming in, Marcus Banks, who is really highly regarded. Jordan Battle is a safety that was maybe the number 2 rated safety in the country. And then also a guy that I really like, DeMarco Helms, will come in June too. And so you kind of get the drift. They've got a lot of really good numbers, talented players, and, some experience too. So I think that's really, really good.
Rodney, can you give us an update? Is it this weekend going to have some recruits on campus?
Ryan, the way this recruiting is right now, they come in, they trickle in here and there. I'd be surprised if they don't have some recruits in. And, this is for another day, I know, on your show,
sure.
But I even think that the recruiting is going to eventually be changing quite a bit. So, and I don't just mean for Alabama, I just mean all these things, the way college football is changing, Ryan, and this free agency looks like it's opening up. I mean, it's going to change everything, and which I hope the NCAA, you're not asking me this, but I hope this NCAA takes a step and just says, hey, look, before this thing spirals out of control, we're gonna tighten up these transfer rules. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous.
Well, even Lane Kiffin today, and I'll leave you with this. He even said, when you look at this transfer portal, he said, I think when we talk about safety, he says, I think you have an issue. I'll give you a quote here from Lane Kiffin. I think you have an issue, and that's really opposite of what has been the new thing to do, which is player safety and getting more players on the field so players don't play as many snaps. He said now this portal is making things go backwards. Now, this is a coach perspective, but he's questioning when we talk about the depth chart and all these players that are leaving, it's really going to put the coaches of having to play a lot of different players, a lot more reps is the way that he took it. He said he thinks that this could be a big safety concern for players with this many players. And you and I are media side of things. We don't get this, but he says, I think the portal is getting so much attention. We're in a generation of just wanting attention right now, no matter what. So I know that getting in this portal and getting an article written about me and getting re-recruited because I don't like exactly how everything's going right here on the campus. That's pretty unique little comment there from Lane Kiffin. I mean, it has a chance to blow up in college football's face.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think, I haven't looked at it long enough, just thinking off the top of my head. You're going to have to hire people on your staff that are designed to, like a retention type staff.
Absolutely.
I mean, people that retain players from transferring. And, I already think this is happening. I know probably coaches wouldn't say this, but I truly believe, I'm convinced that there are coaches that are reaching out to players at other schools already. And there's illegal things going on, trying to lure players to transfer. I have no doubt about that. And I'm telling you, the SEC will be one of the worst. And I'll stop at that. But
yeah, it's 100%. Well, I mean, think about it. If you're coming out of the spring and you got a number of players here, and you start losing guys at positions, and I think that's where Lane Kiffin is taking it, is how do you replace those guys? Let's just say that 10 guys walk off your team. What are you going to do? I mean, how do you go and re-recruit and go find other players? And he's just saying that it's going to open up a can of worms. I think it's a very valid concern from Lane Kiffin, and I think it's good coaches are open up and talk about. Hey, Rodney, safe travels. I know you got a big speaking engagement up in Pell City tonight. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Safe travels, my friend.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Take care.